Simulation. I briefly talked about my battle with various illnesses, such as bipolar disorder. I talked about my experiences with the afterlife and psychic abilities. Again, I have been completely open and honest about this. There is no exaggeration whatsoever. According to my old psychiatrist, I apparently have an abnormality. She thought it was strange that I wanted a logical answer to everything in life. According to her, the latter was impossible, yet with this book, I demonstrate the opposite. Every experience I've had is in my memory as if I experienced it yesterday. For many years, I have been challenged to find answers and see the logical connections. I have fought for over 18 years and I have all the answers I was looking for. Giving up is not in my dictionary. For the first 9 years, I did everything by memory, and it only started to fall into place the moment I started processing my story on paper. Only then did I finally get an overview of what was going on. What made it all so difficult is the fact that there are many topics involved. I didn't see the great connection. My story had no beginning, but also no end. Now, 9 years later, I am familiar with the whole picture. I started my story with a biography because it covers certain taboos. The afterlife and psychic abilities are both taboo in the Netherlands, let alone any openness about mental illness. While everyone in life turned right, I turned left. At the age of 33, I completely broke down and I can no longer do anything on paper. The many burnouts had taken their toll. Yet, it is true that I am worth more than ever, simply because of the knowledge I possess. My knowledge is unique, and I have answers to topics that others do not consider possible. If you thought psychic abilities and the afterlife were strange, I'm warning you, we're going several steps further down the rabbit hole. My universal education sent me in the direction of astrology, numerology, but also religion and ancient cultures have not escaped my notice. I had to make my own judgment about everything, instead of being guided by others. I see a story that almost everyone seems to overlook. I am very aware of the corruption. When you get to the end of my book, compare all my conclusions with what you thought you knew. I have struggled with astrology and my psychic abilities for a long time. There were too many questions, and I had too few answers. I had problems with astrology because it is based on fate. I had an issue with clairvoyance because it suggested that freedom is an illusion. I am the Sagittarius, and funnily enough, that zodiac sign is all about personal freedom. In short, I was in conflict. Astrology proved itself by curing me of a long-lasting depression. I would later also discover that I could guess the zodiac sign based on someone's statements. I especially have this with female Sagittarians. Some are an open book to me. In short, astrology exists, and in this case, you have to perceive it with your ears. It is nothing more than a matter of paying close attention. Yet, the battle with astrology was not entirely over. I would actually look at the basics, and I would discover that a constellation was missing from the list. Let it be a coincidence that I represent that constellation in its purest form. I then did some research and discovered that the constellation of the Serpent Bearer is positioned between Scorpio and Sagittarius. So by adding the Serpent Bearer, I get 13 zodiac signs, and funnily enough, everything comes back into harmony. In short, by puzzling and playing, I discovered the true model of basic astrology. By restoring the old model, I would also unite astrology and numerology as one. Both make use of the same universal building blocks. In society, I faced many problems with being psychic. It wasn't so much that I didn't enjoy experiencing it, it was my social environment that made it difficult. I was declared crazy by several authorities, without having heard a single word of my story. I was stamped in advance and deliberately silenced. All this time, I had to keep everything bottled up, and now in this book, I let everything go. I have experienced the gift of clairvoyance the most, and it would test my brain to its limits. Besides the fact that astrology says that we follow a fixed script, clairvoyance also confirms this. In my first experience, there was a year between the dream and the event. That boy had the free choice to do everything in life the way he wanted, yet everything ultimately led to that one moment. Around the age of 30, I worked at a printing company. It was a period in which I wanted to prove myself to society. I wanted to do my part. In retrospect, it was already too late. I worked 2 long hours and I didn't get enough rest to recover from it. The last 3 months I worked there, I only went to sleep when I got home. I slept and I worked. My body indicated that I couldn't do it anymore. Mentally, I didn't want to give up. Things went so bad during those 3 months that my soul became inactive. I was present, but my soul was not. I was in this state for 3 days, and the special thing about it was that everything, down to the smallest detail, went on autopilot. Whenever someone asked me a question, my body automatically answered the question being asked. I then had to consciously check with myself what was asked and what I had answered, and then I always drew the conclusion afterward that everything was correct. As I mentioned in the introduction, for a shaman, everything in life is about gaining many unique experiences, and this was one of them. In short, everything went on autopilot for 3 days. I even drove home in this condition. It indicates that I have been pre-programmed, down to the smallest detail. It also means that our body is completely coded. The definition of freedom is nothing besides our inability to perceive the future on command. Freedom is an illusion, but a beautiful one. I have come to terms with the fact that the future will always remain a surprise, even for a clairvoyant like me. But then I encountered a huge dilemma. If freedom is an illusion and everything is pre-programmed, what is the final judgment of the soul actually worth? Why are people convicted for actions they could not have prevented? I then spent many years working on this, until the penny finally dropped. Someone taught me that there are 3 forms of consciousness. The first state is the state that everyone is in by default, and is called the level of behavior. In this state, people do things that they cannot explain why they do them. These people are completely unaware of who they are. The second state is the level of identity. This is the phase in which someone starts self-reflection and self-criticism. This state represents only a learning period. The last state is the level of spirituality. These people are fully aware of their behavior and appearance, and make their choices very consciously. In life, you ultimately have to take control of the choices you make. The choices you make in life matter, which points to certain key moments in the script. The sooner you attain the level of spirituality, the better. The last state comes from me. I want to add the level of higher consciousness to it. In this state, you are not only fully aware of yourself, you are also fully aware of reality. You must be familiar with the hidden rules and laws of life. In short, we have the state of behavior, identity, spirituality, and a higher state of consciousness. What is life? What exactly is life? To answer that question, we have to look at the whole picture. The origin of the soul is in the afterlife. It's where we originally came from. We then step into a body as a soul and often consciously enter into a temporary experience. We call this process reincarnation. We are currently familiar with more than 1.5 million different animal species, and for the sake of simplicity we leave out all flora. All life forms on this earth offer a different life experience. As a soul you can reincarnate as anything. In short, we have many options to experience life in different ways. Life is clearly not all about roses and moonshine. In nature we actually have 2 species, we have the prey and we have the hunter. One man's death is another man's bread. A lion is not condemned for eating meat. It's part of his character to have to be that way. However, we as humans have a choice. That makes our lives completely different. We bear responsibility for our choices. A lion does not have to be aware of his behavior. We as human beings do have to be aware. For example, as humans we cannot get away with murder. In the afterlife, the Grim Reaper is waiting for you and it is time for you to take your punishment. In short, the idea is to survive everything and bring life to a happy end. The way you die actually does matter. Souls can get stuck in trauma, depriving themselves of access to the portal because they are stuck in the moment. When death occurs, the soul separates from the body. The person's experience continues as normal. Pain is not experienced, everything flows together smoothly. After death, you are meant to let go of your temporary experience on earth. Being aware of the afterlife and its rules helps enormously with this process. Some souls do not realize that they are dead because they cannot remember or even acknowledge their death. Some of them think they are still alive. It shows how subtle the transition from life to death is. The moment you consciously let go of everything is often the moment you start traveling. One must consciously enter the portal, and the other soul is, as it were, automatically sucked up into the process. Those who have behaved badly remain behind on earth and are consciously forgotten. Engaging life as a human being carries a greater responsibility. Life is a lot like a computer game, yet life itself is not a game, but one where your actions can have serious consequences. Every choice you make in life matters, and knowledge about the afterlife and the universal building blocks is actually a requirement. Alien life. I haven't talked about an important topic yet. In this case, I want to talk about other life in the universe. We are not alone, and perhaps we never been. If a life form from another planet visits us, we call it extraterrestrial. Extraterrestrial life also has a soul and follows the same rules as us. Extraterrestrial souls also exist in the afterlife. These seem to have developed further, yet they also have different rankings. They too have good and bad beings. Space travel is not without danger. I suspect that if you die on Mars, there is a good chance that your soul will remain tied to that planet. I can't tell you anything about the afterlife on Mars, but we still have to seriously consider that risk. Demons summoned to our dimension through dark rituals can't return from whence they came. They are, as it were, trapped on our planet. There is no portal that takes them back to their domain. As I already indicated, the afterlife on Earth is hell, and it is clear that we as humans end up in a mild form of punishment. We are still being spared to some extent. Alien souls, such as the Shadow Man, came from an entirely different dimension, which is completely dominated by pure chaos. My demon came from an ice world because it could imitate enormous cold. It was able to completely manipulate the temperature in my environment. There is also a hell, which consists of a world of fire. There are demons that smell like sulfur, and that refers to a place full of volcanic activity. In short, we are not dealing with a single hell. There are many forms throughout the universe. Each planet has its own. Dreams. During life, we also need time to sleep. The body requires time to process things, and during sleep, the body recovers. The question is, what are dreams? There is no single answer to this question. I am aware of different types of dreams. The most common dream type are dreams in which you process things that you experienced that day before. Dreams can portray this in a very playful and very distorted way. The dream world is extremely creative. This also means that, when we are awake, we are part of a world with fixed code and rules. However, when we go to sleep, we enter a world that is completely dominated by chaos. Another dream type is clairvoyance, and clairvoyance has two forms. The rarest form is when you have a dream that predicts the future with 100% accuracy. You literally get to see what will happen in the future. However, there is no date when it will take place. I would personally experience that most predictions actually come through very symbolic dreams. You will only find out the true message when you fully analyze the dream. You should always ask yourself the question, what does this mean for me? What feeling does it evoke in me? My clairvoyant predictions always come to me in the form of a nightmare. I would also find out that the moon sometimes influences my dreams. It is usually during the full moon that it starts. In this case, it is about processing negative things from the past. The moon has the function of bringing out the subconscious to process unprocessed emotions and experiences. You can recognize these dreams by the fact that you wake up under very intense emotions. This can be sadness, pure anger, or even a lust for murder. The full moon can temporarily bring out the worst in people. This phenomenon is also known as the myth of the werewolf. In astrology, the moon is known as negative, yet its healing intentions are good. In life, I have had many illnesses that are related to stress. I was exhausted for many long periods, and there was even a moment when I was addicted to dreams. During that period, every time I closed my eyes, I had a new vivid dream. It was also during this addiction that something else contacted me. The message was spread across 3 different dreams. They are also the only dreams I have ever bothered to write down. What I want to say for now is that there is a higher power in this universe that can influence our dreams. There are also lucid dreams. I have experienced this type of dream twice. Lucid means waking up in a dream. You become aware of the fact that you are dreaming, and then you have the free will to do anything you like. For example, I immediately flew away. The second time I experienced it was during a prediction. At the end of the prediction, I became aware that I was dreaming. This time I also wanted to fly away, but instead of flying, my feet were nailed to the ground, and I got caught. There are also vivid dreams. These are dreams that seem very real. It happens, rather frequently, that these dreams are wrongly interpreted as dreams that predict the future. They don't predict anything. I have had many types of dreams, but I do remember a special one. It led to a real mindfuck when I finally woke up. While I was dreaming, I thought I really woke up. I walk through my bedroom and yet, it feels different. Then I wake up again. Once more I get out of bed and this time my bedroom window is open. I wanted to close it and while closing the window, I felt a huge energy burst going through my body. It reminded me of the trance I felt during my first experience with clairvoyance. Then I wake up again, walk through the bedroom and this time I want to close the bedroom door. While trying to close the door, I then saw that there was a lighter stuck between the door, and then I really woke up. When I actually woke up, I started to doubt whether I was dreaming or really awake. Let's get back to the question, what is life? As you can see, nothing is what it seems. Our origins lie in the afterlife, time can be completely manipulated, and freedom is an illusion. The afterlife and psychic abilities exist, just as astrology and numerology both represent sciences. Our experience of life is extreme because we find ourselves in a world full of order or in a world full of chaos. We live out a fixed script together, with built-in key moments. You are meant to be self-aware and thereby always learn to make the right choices. You have to take the initiative yourself. It is also clear that you must be familiar with the afterlife and its rules. In short, certain demands are placed on our lives as human beings. The bottom line is that we as souls must be aware that we are part of a simulation. You are also meant to function optimally. To achieve the latter, I will teach you everything you need to know about astrology, and I will teach you everything about numerology. Before I can do that, however, I must first resurrect the serpent bearer as a constellation. This forgotten constellation plays a critical role.